So you want to build the Great Wall of China. Simple plan, right? Pick a border, stack up bricks along thousands of miles, and sleep easy knowing nothing gets through. That is the picture most people carry around. A single, ancient, unbroken line of stone stretching across mountains, holding back every invader for 2,000 years. Almost none of that is true. The Great Wall was never one wall. It was never built once. It was pieced together, torn down, rebuilt, abandoned, and rebuilt again by different rulers in different centuries for different reasons, using whatever materials happened to be lying around in that particular stretch of land. The first version goes back to around 220 BC, when Emperor Qin Shi Huang ordered older, separate border walls left by earlier warring states to be joined into one defensive line. This was not a construction project you could hire out. There was no paid workforce lining up for the job. The labor came from hundreds of thousands of peasants, convicted criminals, and soldiers, marched to the frontier under a general named Ming Dynasty, who is said to have commanded roughly 300,000 men on the project at once. Conditions were brutal. Workers died from exhaustion, cold, and starvation far from home, and folklore later claims some were buried inside the wall itself, though historians cannot confirm that detail exactly. What is certain is that building materials changed depending on where you stood. In the desert regions, workers pounded layers of earth, gravel, and reeds into hardened ramparts because stone simply was not available. In the mountains, they cut and hauled rock. Centuries later, the Ming Dynasty added fired brick to sections near the capital. Here is the part people miss when they picture one tidy building project. A castle needed stone moved to a single site. The wall needed stone, earth, and labor coordinated across a border stretching through desert, grassland, and mountain range, with no rivers to float materials down and often no roads at all. Every mile was its own logistical nightmare, repeated thousands of times over, and the emperor who started it never lived to see it finished, let alone see whether it actually worked. That question, whether any of this bought real safety, is where the story gets even more expensive. Because building the wall was only the beginning. The real bill arrived after construction, and it never stopped. Long after the Qin Dynasty collapsed, the Ming Dynasty rebuilt much of the wall we picture today, between the 14th and 17th centuries, after Mongol raiders returned as a threat along the northern border. This time the builders used brick and stone instead of packed earth, added watchtowers every few hundred meters, and installed a chain of beacon towers so soldiers could pass warnings across mountain ranges using smoke and fire signals faster than any messenger could ride. All of that needed people to run it every single day, whether an enemy showed up or not. At its peak, close to 1 million soldiers were stationed along the wall system, and every one of them needed pay, weapons, and food year-round. Here is the difference from a castle that nobody talks about. A castle sat inside a manor, surrounded by farmland that fed itself. The wall ran through desert, rock, and dry grassland that could not grow enough food to feed a single garrison, let alone 1 million men. Grain had to be hauled hundreds of miles from productive regions, at a cost that often outweighed the price of the soldiers themselves. Maintenance never ended either. Wind, sandstorms, and freezing winters wore down the earthen sections constantly, so parts of the wall were always crumbling while other parts were being repaired somewhere else at the same time. A 2012 government survey measured the wall and its branches at over 21,000 kilometers, a length so vast that no single dynasty's treasury could properly maintain the whole thing at once. And despite all that spending, the wall did not stop history's biggest invasions. Mongol forces broke through repeatedly, and the Manchus eventually swept past it entirely in 1644 to found the Qin Dynasty. The wall's real value was never pure military defense. It controlled trade, slowed migration, and marked a political boundary between two different worlds. The lesson is the same one every empire eventually learns the hard way. The most expensive part of a wall is never the stone. It is the forever bill of feeding, guarding, and repairing a border longer than any treasury can sustain, and the smartest rulers were not the ones who built the longest wall, but the ones who understood exactly what it would cost to keep men fed on land that grew nothing at all.